Myself all ready for the Reach Tov of the Sikkim.
Just to review what we learned today, Bez Hashem. First of all, we see something clear that the bracha of Reach is a unique bracha because it's a unique hana. There's undoubtedly a lot of ruchnius in Reach. But basically, besides the other four brachas, Chazal required a special bracha to a Reach that comes out of fruits or vegetables, anything that really grows that's considered a peri. The bracha of Reach is a bracha with the same chiyuv of making a bracha, there's also an issa of smelling without a bracha. In fact, we even saw that even a suffix Reach, you're not allowed to be mariach, because it has the chaymer of a suffix nana. The big kula that we find only regarding Birchas Reach is that it has to be nasa l'reach toiv, not just to offset a bad smell, like in a beis hakisei or the like. It has to be made to smell the positive aspect, and also your kavana has to be l'hariach. In other words, if you have a fragrant fruit but you bought it to eat, a bracha would not be said. The hezbah, as we explained, because the whole bracha of reach is a hanamu etes, it's an ein la'ika, there's no bracha achreina, and that's why if you do make the bracha, it has to be a real full benefit. It can't be a reach that you don't have a kavana for that. When someone knows that there's no chiyuv bracha, let's say it was made to offset a bad smell, there's no reason to stuff one's nose or wear a mask. It's not a psamim. It's not the cheftzah that's mechayiv a bracha. It's unique to the bracha that you have to have kavanah l'riach. And look at the nusach. Hanoisen reach toy beperis. It didn't lose its status, its prominence as a peri, but that's the chesed that the Marsha gave us besamim in the peris that we eat. The major machlek is, what does that mean? Kavanah l'hariach. The Bialacha says, even if you bought the fruit to eat, if you pick it up to smell it first, you make it into two stages. You make a bracha because now it's kavanah l'hariach. Chazon Ish holds it has to be bought, or actually has to be had only for smell. That would label it as a baisim. If you bought it to eat, it's an oichel. The Gemara that says you make a bracha on esrogim is you bought it not to eat it or for the mitzvah, only for the smell. And that, of course, has many nafkaminas, but the minig ha'olam seems to be like the bialacha. Even if it's you bought it to eat, if you pick it up to smell, a bracha could be said. So someone is cooking applesauce with cinnamon and it has ala taimim, ala reichos, there's no bracha because kavanah is to eat. Grilling steak, we assume there's no bracha because there's not enough of a smell. It's like cut grass where there's no bracha. If you're not sure either if it has a smell or you can smell, or you want to buy something, you're not sure which to buy, we think that could be included in the kavanah shaloi l'shem haracha. That's just to determine if there is a smell and therefore bracha is not said. Herbal tea, there's no bracha because the kavanah is to smell, is to drink, not to smell. Mint is an isvei psamim, and if indeed you pick it up to smell, you make the bracha isvei psamim lechatchila because it's not eaten. Even on a melon that you make a bar priyadama, the bracha is reach toiv beperis because it's a priyadama. Mushrooms, the bracha is shahakol, and the bracha on reach, if it has a strong enough smell, would be bayrei minei besamim. For Avdallah, it's kedai to use the besamim, the cloves, because that's the minig Yisrael, not to take food, because then you come into the shayla, according to the Chazon Ish, it will not be a legitimate bracha. It has to be kavanah l'ariach. And the besamim we have are also miyuchid laharacha, and that's the mile of our besamim. If a person has no cloves at home, so the eight is to take any type of spice that the bracha said, put it on your hands, and afterwards discard it, so that's miyuchid laharacha. On peels, there's a machlekes in what bracha to make, but it's definitely understandable that you can still make the same bracha of reach beperis, because that is part of the peri, but the minig is to make a bayir mina besamim on a fragrant peel of a fruit. A tree growing in an atzei and a nakav, the bracha is atzei besamim because it is a tree, even though in hilchas brachas it might be different. If the balabas gives a guest a fruit to eat, you go basa the das of the balabas, not the kavanah of the oichel will not help. Wine, typically there's no bracha said, unless again it's the kavanah l'hariach, not as a prelude to the shtiya. The definition of a peri is very hard to give in one easy lesson, but it seems that first of all, you don't have strong smells in fruits bichlal, so the aleph is you have to make sure it has a strong enough smell. But once it does have a strong smell, for example, cinnamon or cloves or lemon, so you have another problem. Is the bracha reach type of Paris, or since those three are not eaten as is, there has to be prepared. Cinnamon has to be prepared, cloves has to be prepared, lemon has to be prepared. So maybe the bracha is not reach type of Paris, but rather boire mina pesamim, and that seems to be the minig in the shulchan of the later paiskim, that on cinnamon and cloves the bracha is boire mina pesamim. Lemons is a machlokes. We saw the Teis HaShulchan feels you make the bracha because it's still a boire mina pesamim, but we showed that the Kinas Haradim says to make the original bracha because it's a fruit that's edible, even though it needs preparation, and presumably the same would apply to a pastel or esrig. A bracha could be said, reach type of Paris, because an esrig could be eaten if it's prepared. Agav, an esrig on sukkis, Bialacha seems to say even when you're not making it the mitzvah, let's say Shabbos Chalamoid or Leil Yom Tov, where you can't do a mitzvah, but since it's miyuchid for the mitzvah, it loses its shem as a baisim, and a bracha is never said on an esrig on sukkis. Hadassim, the bracha is always atzei besamim, except on sukkis, it's asa to smell, so you don't make any bracha when you smell hadassim on sukkis. Coffee beans and coffee grind, if there's a pronounced smell, l'chor, the bracha is reach type of Paris. Hot bread, the paiskim say we don't make a bracha, it's not a strong enough smell. And interesting, Mr. Bura says not to make on hot bread, you could make on coffee. Evidently coffee is a stronger smell than bread. Yom Kippur, we said the order is first on the shemen of Orev from Eretz Yisrael, then we make on Atzei, Reach Tebe Paris, Isvei, and Bar Mina Besamim. Spices that's never edible, as is, even if you prepare it, it's always a spice to a food, is the regular bracha on Bar Mina Besamim. And someone whose nose is stuffed, or someone who cannot smell, unfortunately cannot make the bracha. We do not rely on the svara that the neshama has anah. The Rebbe, yeah.
Has regular cloves and hadassim, and he makes boiler mina atzei v'samim.
Oh, no, I don't know. You told me, but now I remember. Yeah.
It's mina atzei. It should have actually been atzei mina,
Atzei,
right?